because this business is so scalable and strong knowledge and dedication gives so high leverage, it really starts from the strong team. Yeah, whoever has the strong team, that will have way higher chance of success. Which means that in the gaming business, it makes sense to hire really one good person instead of three that are average. And then we see the actual outcome in terms of the business results.
Welcome to Mobile Growth and Pancakes, a podcast by StoreMaven. We break down how and why mobile apps grow. In each episode, we invite a mobile growth expert onto the show to break down a specific mobile growth strategy, how it worked, why it worked, and what they would do differently. I'm your host, Esther Schatz.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Mobile Growth and Pancakes. I'm your host, Jonathan Fishman, and I'm really excited today to have here with me Mariusz Gąsiewski. He's Mobile Gaming Lead for Central and Eastern Europe at Google. So I have a lot of questions, and I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic episode. How are you, Mariusz?
Hello, thank you. Really amazing. I'm really great to be here and share some thoughts about the industry with you.
Awesome. So can you tell us a bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
Yes. So at Google, on one side, I work with mobile gaming and apps companies in the region. On one side, with those ones that have the more like ambition to really, scale themselves in the whole world. And then on the other side, I'm kind of, trying to help the ecosystem in the region by connecting the companies with investors, by sharing more knowledge on the market, or sometimes just engaging more industry to share the more knowledge inside the industry.
Awesome. And I'm sure that you have a ton of perspective about mobile game businesses in Europe and in general, mostly on the Android side. But I really want to get your perspective on three main things today. So the first one is any kind of insights you have on which game genres or countries are on the rise right now. There's kind of like the state of the mobile gaming market these days, even specifically on the Android side, because there's a lot of data coming in from folks like Sensor Tower and App Annie about the fact that mobile game spending is down. I have my thoughts about this, but I want to touch that point. Second, your thoughts about where privacy is going to with Android and the privacy sandbox. And we will talk about this in kind of a high level because we don't have a ton of time. And third, in this new world that we're headed to, what do you think are the factors to success for a game business, and which companies are more likely to succeed than others, and why? So let's start with the state of the market. What do you think about this data that is coming in here and there about the fact that the market is kind of slow for mobile games? And how do you see things there?
I think if we look at the market in mobile games, it has a few different perspectives and a few different points. The first one is if we look at the business, it always was the business of, high win, high risk. So if you win the market because it's very scalable, then you actually, you get amazing success. But it's actually, there are a lot of companies that actually want to get that success. The second point is, of course, if we look at the data, even based on App Annie, if we compare the first 4 months of this year versus the first 4 months of the last year, we see even a little bit of negative growth, which is actually coming from, I think it was minus 8% year over year based on App Annie. But it's on one side, it's coming from the fact that 2 previous years created pretty nice base because of the COVID, because of all moves inside the industry. And then, of course, there is the topic related even to the revenue measurement. Yeah. So, for example, the ad revenue part that is very strong and is actually in many cases even growing faster than in-app revenue, especially in emerging markets. There are not many ways actually where you can actually measure it. So there are not many tools where actually you can really look, how it's really growing. So in this case, in many cases, it's kind of a little bit overlooked as well. And then, of course, there is a lot of concentration happening on the market as well, because of the growth, because of the, on one side, capital and knowledge that you need actually to run successful growth activities, create specific entry barrier, which is not easy to go over for entry players. So that, of course, it creates another point for impression and feeling that, okay, it's extremely hard, especially for someone who is starting that part, yeah. But still, if we look at the market, so for example, I just look at the App Annie, and it was interesting to see that if I look at the in-app revenue in US, if I look at top 1,000 grossing, 30% of that of actually games were older than 5 years. So that actually shows that it's actually, it's harder and harder actually to enter that market. But on the other side, you have still a lot of successes, a lot of companies that actually started not long time ago and they got amazing success. And we see that, of course, still it's the time when the casual genres are actually growing really nicely, casual games, simulation games are doing really well. Board games are actually getting more and more popular. And I think they used to be really, ad monetized, but more and more companies are trying to get some in-app from high value users. So actually we see that even in those gaming genres, there is a lot of learnings that developers coming from those really, casual and light, let's call it genres. They're moving actually learnings from core and mid-core games to actually again increase the monetization. And of course, if we look at the markets, the last months weren't really best for tier one markets. So for example, if we look at those 4 months, US was actually growing below the average if we look at the revenue, which is actually exactly coming from the fact that 2021 and 2020 was extremely successful for US as the market. And then again, there was specific saturation on those markets coming from growth cost and entry barrier that is actually again coming to those markets. And the other side, if we look at markets like Turkey, Malaysia, Saudi Arabia, even markets like Poland, Brazil, they are actually growing much faster than average. And of course, again, they are not always easy market to enter because of localization, because of all those challenges related to that. Still in those markets, usually pretty high share of the revenue is delivered by a pretty small percentage of the users. So you need to kind of find them in the right moment and then adjust the content. But still, again, I think from the perspective of new developer or someone who haven't started a really long time ago, it's not always the best idea to really focus on the biggest share of the pie. Let's focus on US or the fastest growing genre, because again, usually the best parts of the industry are actually the most competitive as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that I agree with you on a lot of these points. I think that the consolidation that is happening, and unless you've been living under a stone, you've saw the news. It's been happening for a couple of years now, this very, very intense consolidation trend in the mobile game industry. I think that all of this consolidation it's basically a result of the fact that it's just pretty hard to create a really good mobile game business. It's hard to create a good game. And there's a lot of risk, as you said. It's a very high risk, high reward type of venture. So a lot of them are actually turning to acquire existing games and de-risk themselves. And it's really hard to scale a game. And there's a lot of economies of scale there in terms of their user acquisition capabilities, both on the data and analytics side. Basically, their entire publishing capabilities are already developed. So they have a system they can plug in really good games to and grow all of these mega game businesses.
Yeah, and I think a lot of developers, they want to be successful, not just in one genre, but to, a little bit, I would say, balance that is a little bit more in the way that, okay, I would like to be really present in a few genres. And again, in those cases, it's usually not easy to create just another game in that different genre. It's in many cases, it's a little bit easier to buy the game or even buy the studio and then as the group be relevant for a few strong and interesting gaming genres.
Yeah, and I think on the positive side, and actually think about success even in Europe. And you mentioned Turkey, it's kind of unbelievable what's happening in Turkey. I remember, 5 years ago, it was unheard of that it's going to be an amazing game industry in Turkey. And now there's so much great talent and great game studios in Turkey. And the Turkish market itself as a game market is growing very fast. So we can see there examples such as Dream Games, who created Royal Match. So that's exactly that. You have folks that are coming in with a lot of background and expertise in creating a fantastic match 3 game. I'm addicted to it. I'm at level, 1,000 already. And they became one of the biggest advertisers on the store, coming in head to head with folks like King and other folks that dominate the match 3 category for a decade or almost. It is possible for a newcomer to do this, but you need to come in with good expertise. So that's encouraging.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. Yeah, so I think again, there are not many industries where you can leverage that potential so heavily. Yeah? So in the way that, if you get that success can be extremely, really, really amazing. And always in every market, usually every big success is really inspiring new founders and new people who are thinking, okay, actually, maybe I can actually try to do the same, or like at least kind of, similar. So always such successes are really, really good for the market, because actually they are really inspiring the people, talented people in the market, and actually they're showing that reward, even if it's high risk and high reward. If you see that reward, then it's a little bit easier to imagine yourself on that chair as well.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let's move on to the second point, because I want to make sure that we have time to talk about it, which is privacy. So much has been happening with privacy, and the impact for game marketers has been huge with iOS 14.5 and everything that happened on the Apple and iOS side, which created a lot of mayhem and chaos for some time. So it started with iOS 14.5 and deprecating the IDFA without providing a ton of solutions and sending the industry to basically figure it out. And that created a lot of damage in terms of targeting. So a lot of game businesses were used to basically have a channel such as Facebook and others where they can acquire high quality users without worrying too much about targeting, because it was based on Facebook and all the other social networks, social graph and user graph that basically collected a lot of user level data about their in-game behavior from about every game that they ever downloaded or played. And they took that away. So it became pretty hard to acquire high quality users in the same way. And that actually sent a lot of spend and a lot of companies to focus for some time on the Android side. And then we didn't hear anything from Google for about a year. But when we did, the market, the industry, the community basically received it very well, I think, because the main message was, we are not going to do something irresponsible that's going to send also the Android ecosystem into chaos. We know that, I'm now talking specifically about mobile games, but it's for any app business. We know that mobile game businesses need a feasible way to grow. They need a way to grow their audience, to grow their user base, and they need to rely on advertising to do that. And we want to maintain that. We do want to create a more private ecosystem and a more private world, but we want to do it in a responsible way that allow these businesses to also advertise and thrive. And to do that, they need basically two things. They need targeting. They need the ability to measure without compromising user level data. So first of all, my question is like, why do you think, and of course, everything here that we're talking about is at a high level, why do you think Google is taking this approach as opposed to what Apple did? Because basically they said that it's going to take about 2 years until it's going to be enforced and they're going to involve the community in it. But it's a very different approach. It's like, we're going to protect the advertising ecosystem, and only after we manage to tick that box, we'll protect privacy or something in those lines. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, there are a few points, yes. So in this case, as you exactly mentioned, like the main idea behind the Google's approach is actually to combine 3 points. The first one is that, okay, as the Google, we want to kind of, develop those to really keep this user information private. So really develop the approach that really actually is really taking seriously the user's privacy and their growing expectations. Yeah, because we know that actually the user's expectations towards privacy are actually growing. So that's why it should be done very, very, very seriously. The second point, which is extremely important, is that the Google really wants to enable both publishers and developers to really keep the online content for free. So always this, access to the free content was in the Google's DNA, and both the developers and publishers, they need to really have the way to really actually still make some business, and because that business actually will make them giving that access to the content for free, because that's actually what users want. Yeah. So, and then of course, the third point is actually the whole project is actually invitation given to the industry to actually collaborate on this final solution. Yeah, so that's why it wasn't really announcement of the final solution. It was announcement about high-level approach. And if you go to this Privacy Sandbox on Android website, where you can actually have quite detailed explanation, at least on the high level, this approach, there is actually the place where the whole industry can actually add the feedback, share what actually someone is thinking about that thing. And then the final solution that will probably take around 2 years to develop will actually include that feedback to the industry, making sure that on one side we have that solution that is actually corresponding to the user's expectation on privacy. On the other hand, it's really looking at the business model of publishers and developers. And the third point is actually really something that is seen by the industry as fair and really actually working as the standard. Yeah? And the last point is that actually a lot of those things that we are discussing and actually, sharing for Android were actually tested already in some way on the web part of Google properties, because some of those solutions were actually, they're live for almost 2 years, being more on the website.
Yeah. And I love that. I think that, first of all, Google has a lot more experience than Apple in working with advertisers. They're way longer in that business. And I think it shows, because it's basically, I'll just go real quickly over the proposals in the privacy sandbox. So in regard to targeting, it's basically saying, we're going to provide you tools to targeting high quality users. We're going to do this with something that's called topics. It's basically allowing you to target users based on interest without sacrificing user level data, without allowing you to basically,
Yeah, because that's what's important in that approach. The all user data is still staying on the user device. Yeah, so it's not really shared with.
Yeah, it never leaves the device. It's a lot of it is based on device computation, which is great. And also, one of the things that iOS 14.5 broke pretty dramatically was retargeting. So another approach that is called Fledge to allow you to retarget users, again, without sacrificing that user level data and maintaining privacy for users. Something around measurement, the attribution reporting API proposal, which is amazing. There's so much details there on the website. If you want to go to Privacy Sandbox on Android website, just Google it, which basically is a way more developed version of SK Ad Network that allows you to actually measure in a pretty good way and in an aggregated and privacy first way the performance of your campaigns. And lastly, and that's on actually the user privacy side, in a really good way, this proposal called the SDK runtime. So it's a really good way to enforce all the bad practices from kind of players doing fingerprinting and things that aren't allowed. So Google has a really good proposal for that. It's called the SDK runtime, basically making sure that all the SDKs that perform this practice of fingerprinting are operating in their own runtime environment, so they can't access device parameters without receiving permission from the app itself that they're installed within. These are really good proposals that I think would make life very different for game marketers on Android. Once they're actually deployed, we need to see the final version of these proposals, of course, but it's not going to be the same, in my view, as what game marketers experienced when iOS 14.5 came out.
Yeah, I feel like the initial response from the industry, I think is really good. And even at this point, there are a lot of details on this privacy sandbox on Android website. And of course, all that content, all that approach will be developed, but still there is quite a lot of time on that. But actually, on that side, I really encourage everyone who haven't visited that website yet really to visit it and, start to go deeper into the topic, and even thinking, how to actually understand it better, and actually how to even grow my approach towards like first party data as well. Yeah, because of course, on one side, there is a lot of stuff you can do around understanding your data on the higher level, thinking about third party approach. But on the other side, you can, of course, grow your approach towards understanding your users based on the data they are giving, based on looking at your relationship that you have with them, and what actually kind of data they can share just with you because you have that relationship, and then what you can know about those users more than other players.
That's gold right there. And there's so much you can do with learning from that first party data, but that's gold. Lastly, before we move to my third point, I just want to talk a bit about the entire legal environment that is changing. We won't go into the nuts and bolts of the legal proposals and everything, but for those of you who don't know, Europe is making a ton of progress in actually proposing, and it seems like they're adopting some of these laws or pieces of regulation, such as the Digital Markets Act, and there's a few other proposals. It even gets the attention of US officials. I even heard Obama in a video talking about the fact that the US is behind and they need to start having these conversations. But basically, all these, what's common, or like the common thread that goes through all of these pieces of regulation, is to open up marketplaces, to stop very monopolistic behaviors, I would say. On one hand, that basically means that there's a gatekeeper for some markets, and it's one company and they can do whatever they want. Apple is a bit more centralized in that approach, and basically it has two sides to it. And I know that you can't comment like specifically about Google's view and all of that, but basically there's two sides of it. One of them is around payment systems and allowing different payment systems. That's one side of it. So you don't have to go through Apple or Google on the payment side. Google is testing. It's been published with Spotify. They're running a pilot of allowing third-party payment systems, which is great. The more interesting side is that although on the Android side, you can sideload apps for a lot of time, and that has, created a thriving market in places like China. On Apple devices, you can. So one of these proposals is to actually allow for sideloading on iOS devices. So the question I know that you can comment on some of these things, but I just really want to try to imagine the future here and to ask you, do you imagine that in Western markets, in Europe, the US, all of that, we're going to see an environment that is more similar to China, where when you as a game business approach distribution, you have dozens and dozens of options, dozens of marketplaces, dozens of app stores. It's the market there is very fragmented. So do you think we're going to see the same thing in Western markets?
So of course it's quite complex topic, because on one side Google is always fulfilling only any law regulations that exist in any market. So like whatever kind of law exists, whatever kind of law will be created in European Union, Google will fulfill the obligations coming from that. On the other side, if you look at those, stores, it's kind of even bigger topic because, for example, right now there is a lot of discussion around Web3, around crypto. Yes, so not just like paying with US, paying just with currency, with many other ways. Yeah, so that access to the games and apps is not just the topic where those apps and games will be, but how you will be paying for them and how you will be engaging with the content. Yeah, so if you're asking me, like if I can imagine, of course, like everything is possible. And like a lot of, again, will depend on those regulations. A lot of will depend on, how those Web3 communities will grow, how they actually will develop. Because in that approach, of course, the mission of the store will be a bit different, I would say. But even actually in China, there is there is quite many stores, but still there are some that in general are more popular among higher share of the users. Yes, so of course it's you can imagine that in general that competition that is getting harder, and of course depending on this regulation, depending on the users' favors, the feature can be way different. Even today, you have some like third-party stores existing in the world. So I mean, hard for me to comment, what will be the future of Apple Store or Play Store, because at the end of the day, users will kind of vote with their money and with their fingers, going to the specific point when they see the value and then downloading games and apps from the place. Yeah, and of course, at this point, Play is doing everything it can to really deliver the best user experience, the most secure environment for the users. Yeah, and even a lot of changes that are actually tested on the Play, allowing lower value payments. Yeah, so that someone can pay something for very, very, very small amount of money, not just for $2 or $3. The topics that are very, very important, for example, for emerging markets. Yeah, the test that you mentioned with Spotify. Yeah, or what is the best way for the users to get information about new type of content on the store. Yeah, so I would say a lot of things are actually being tested right now, and we can say for sure that probably that reality in a few years will be way, way different than today.
Yeah, for sure. And for game marketers and people in the business of games, in mobile games, I just think focusing on the principles of marketing and, understanding who your users. Yeah, go ahead.
I think the topic that is in some way, but I would say not exactly connected to that, but I think strongly correlated, which is cross-platform approach, for example. Yeah,
mm-hmm,
so sure. I think that more and more actually companies are actually saying that actually we want to develop the games that will actually work on any other platform, not just on one. Yeah, and then actually on the Google side, we see that interest as well. Yeah, so that's why even again those stores in the futures for sure will be looking totally differently than now.
Yeah, it's exactly the point I was saying is that as a marketer, you need to focus on the principles of marketing to grow your game business. You need to understand who your users are, who are your good user segments, what differentiates them, how you can acquire them, where they spend time, how you can find them, how you can scale your game, basically. In the future, I truly believe it's going to be more open, and the way that folks would discover new content and new games and where they're going to play it is going to be very, very, I don't want to say fragmented, but there's going to be a lot of options. And what you just mentioned with cross-platform, we can see the same thing, because another test that is happening, I think it's in beta, is Google Play games on PC. So there's like a beta that allows folks to play mobile or games that were designed for mobile. It's like the word mobile here is it doesn't make a lot of sense. To play, for example, Candy Crush on a PC by installing a Google Play store on your PC, and you can basically, and then what it means to be a marketer of a mobile game, like you have users coming in from PC that maybe they don't even have the app on mobile, but the more exciting things is some of their sessions are happening on mobile, some of their sessioning are happening on the PC when they're taking a break from work or so on. So I think that's a really exciting future. But if you focus on the principles of marketing and growing your game business, it would always hold true no matter where you distribute your games.
Exactly, yes. So that's, I would say the same things will matter as now. We are trying to understand the needs of your user, and then how actually you can really deliver that specific promise that made them actually come to you. And then actually that whoever is the best in that, whoever actually is choosing the right game and the right battle, because of course, like the whole gaming is not just about going to all battles, but choosing that one that you know that you can win. So that's why actually we were talking even about those genres, about those countries. So it's not always about doing the game for everyone, but focusing on the specific audience that is on one side big enough for your business to survive, but on the other side, not necessarily the most competitive and taken, for example, by the biggest ones. Yeah.
For sure. So we have a few minutes left. I do want to ask you on the third point, which is like factor of success, and which companies do you think are more likely to succeed as a game business in this environment in the next 3 years, and which are less likely? So can you give us like a few points about that?
So I think, of course, it's a broad topic, but something that we see really well is actually that's actually why there is even this hiring market became so competitive, is that because this business is so scalable and strong knowledge and dedication gives so high leverage, it really starts from the strong team. Yeah, whoever has the strong team, that will have way higher chance of success. Which means that in the gaming business, it makes sense to hire really one good person instead of three that are average, and then we see the actual outcome in terms of the business results. And that's actually how I think, especially like new players and new teams should really start. How actually can really create not really big but small team that can actually survive for longer, but the people who really know what they are doing and are really dedicated to do it. Yeah, so I think that's a really important point. Then the second one is you need to decide, I would say very early in your journey, what is your approach towards business aspects of gaming. Do you want to just create the games and then focus on that? And then for the business parts, look for the right partner, look for the right publisher, maybe look for the right freelancer that will do it for you. Or you want to develop full gaming company, which means that all those topics that create really high entry barrier, like analytics, creation of BI, creation of CRM, all those sometimes quite sophisticated topics, you need to do it from as early as possible if you want to really go in that direction. Yeah. And of course, it can be starting from doing nice BI based on the Firebase and data sent to the BigQuery, or similar solutions. But again, there is high win and high reward, but there is actually this challenge related to the fact that you are really actually going to the battle with really strong companies that actually are present in that market for many years already.
Yeah.
And then the third point is really you need to use those insights about the users as good as possible. Yeah. Starting from the point that we mentioned, choosing the right market, choosing the right genre that you really understand, and then how actually you can grow understanding of those users, how actually I can really improve in retention, how I can really improve the monetization, and then combining those points, I can improve monetization. And then once I'm there, then it's way easier even to think about doing growth and developing the really successful business. Yes, so actually it's fast business, which means it's the business for the people who want to be fast and really want to be fast in doing the things happen and sort of making it happen. And I would say growing that probability of success every next day. It's kind of rather marathon than sprint at the end of the day.
For sure. And I really like your point about the fact that somebody that is building a game or a team that's building a game really needs to make that decision early on, because it's two different things. Like to create a good game or a great game is just a completely different rodeo than building the publishing technology that you need to compete with the large, it's like players that are worth tens of billions of dollars in the market that are investing a lot into publishing technology and having these capabilities to distribute and scale these games. So scaling the game is just a different rodeo. These days, it's extremely complex, like to build that side of the business. So that's a decision that needs to be done early on. But luckily, folks have a lot of options. They have a lot of options they can start with. As you mentioned, Firebase, these entry points exist basically across the stack of the publishing technology. And at some point, of course, publishing, like finding a publishing partner is an option. So there's a lot of options, but it's so crucial to make that decision. And because a lot of teams that I saw that tried to actually build the technology and that publishing stack too early on, it took away so much of their focus that they actually hurt their own game, which is the important thing.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's, even this COVID that you showed that, in many ways, working in the games, you can actually work from anywhere. So literally, you don't need to be in the office. You don't need to be in a specific country. That's really, I think, big advantage that you can choose actually to grow your business, even hiring the people from other markets, hiring the people from very distant actually places. But on the other side, that actually grows this competitive bar as well. Yeah. So again, you need to think about what is how much you are actually averse to the risk. Because again, in this case, it's kind of a lot of those activities depend on how actually far you want to go, risking a specific activity. Because let's see, even if we look at some budgets like 100K, it can be a lot to develop the game, but not necessarily it will be a lot to grow the game to kind of, strong success. Yeah. So again, at the end of the day, it's like, whoever makes it thinking from the beginning, looking at the right time horizon and thinking about topics like cash flow, like what is my team, what they want to create. Do they want to be really successful? But then they understand that actually it comes with higher risk, or maybe they just want to be, part of pretty small but still successful gaming company, but the company that rather will not likely will be repeating the success of Dream Games as the example. Yeah, so
for sure.
So that's, I think, is really the important point for those, business decisions.
Awesome. Thank you. That's been a fantastic conversation. We are running out of time, so I'm going to skip a few of the regular questions we ask guests, and I'll move straight to the meat, or should I say the pancake, and ask you, what is your favorite flavor of pancake? It doesn't have to be a pancake, by the way. Something that is similar to a pancake also works.
Actually, I love vanilla, I would say. Yeah, I really like, vanilla ice cream, vanilla pancakes. Actually, I would say probably I would vote for that one.
Awesome. That's good. And lastly, where can people find you? We talked about so many things, and I'm sure that folks have questions or want to work with Google and so on. Where can folks reach out to?
Sure. So at first, I really encourage you to visit the website www.gamecamp.io. Actually, if you are growing your mobile gaming business, you will find a lot of really good sessions there, recordings done with the really successful founders and successful gaming companies. So that's really, I think, one good source. And then, really, encourage you to catch up with me on the LinkedIn. You can, happy to connect with the people. So please reach out to me. Happy to exchange the experience and knowledge. So just go to the LinkedIn, Mariusz Gąsiewski, and happy to connect with you.
Great. And we'll include those links in the episode description, so you can find them there. And that's it. I think it was a fantastic conversation. I enjoyed it a lot. I could continue for another hour or so, but we do have to finish. And I would just want to thank you. It's been a pleasure. And
really, thank you for that.
Yeah, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you for the invitation.
Awesome.
Have a good day.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
And that was Mobile Growth and Pancakes. To find out more about StoreMaven and how we can improve App Store performance, visit storemaven.com. And then make sure to search for Mobile Growth and Pancakes in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found, and click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at StoreMaven, thanks for listening.